Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about communication with management. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, how do you communicate to your management and nearing retirement teammates that your infrastructure and products are rotting from the inside out? We are past tech debt, we are unable to meet our internal customers' need. Well, that is pretty easy. So usually what I do is that I pull a few basic metrics and a little bit of feedback, and then I present that to whoever. And then I learned something that is slightly opinionated. We're going to touch on that as well, but uh, I've learned a hard lesson even though I do these things. So let me first walk you through my method. So the first thing that I suggest that you sort of get to terms with is that what you define as quality and what you define as good, bad, etc., may not be the definition anybody else has. And even if you can agree with your teammates or so forth and so forth, like that things are bad, something that I'm just going to give you is that, guys, some people are more okay with, like they prefer to complain about something being shit than to do something about it. And that is a tough pill to swallow for the people out there who wants to make a difference. Sometimes you're unfortunate enough to be in a situation where you can see issues, you can see better ways of doing things, and so forth and so forth, but you work for people or with people, or you have a dependency to people who couldn't give a fuck. Like they don't care. It's good enough for them, whatever the state might be, and it could be completely horrible. It doesn't matter to them because they're fine with what the current situation is. However, on the off chance, and I'm saying the off chance here because that's the opinionated part of me coming out, really, this is the norm, I find. It's more often that I see people, as I said, they can see a problem and they can be absolutely on board with the concepts of a fix, but they're not willing to pay the price. As I like to say to people who talk about the environment, and I say everybody wants to save the environment, right? But that's only because you never actually had to consider what would it cost to save the environment, all of it. Most people don't think about that. It's the same thing with anything. Any concept is a good idea if you don't have to think about cost. And that's when people start to show their true colors. How much are you willing to do in order to solve something? So in order for me to give them an argument for to do something or like to actually fix something is that I show them a few key metrics. First and foremost, bug trend over time. That is a very important metric. It's one of the first one I go to. You can do it right now. You can go to your, I'm assuming now you have a Kanban board of some sort and using Jira, Azure DevOps, GitHub Enterprise, like whatever like you're using, and go and do a query on all your bug cards and measure how many are you accumulating. Like you can go look at the total, but usually it's nicer to, I find people, if people see a trend to things, that's usually a more impactful metric because the bugs will tell you, like it's an objective fact. How many bugs do you have? Are you accumulating more and more issues? You can even go by severity. Some people do like P1s, P2s, and like severities and like different levels and stuff like that. But the main thing you're going for is to show people objectively how many issues you have reported about your system. That's number one, because that's a non-negotiable number. These are actual problems, right? Then after that, I go to my environments and I go and I pull the performance metrics. And I go and the performance metrics I'm usually looking at are things like latency. That's a good one. And I also look at things such as, for example, the like the amount of like errors the system has or things like that, like if you have logs or things like that, like how often does the system fail for some reason or so forth and so forth. These are very good metrics. And then of course cost is a good one as well, if you can swing that. It's a bit dangerous with cost though, because on average the cost of a system is it's hard to prove that. Like that's why I'm doing that actually right now, when I'm trying to, like, they've asked me, my company has asked me to put together a FinOps presentation and talk about FinOps, because that's a big thing for some reason. And I've always told them the same thing, that FinOps and like optimizing your research and stuff like that, that does absolutely make a difference. And I actually show them that in the presentation as well, because I want to catch the real culprit, which is usually bad system design and things and incompetent coworkers, rather than the actual resources you are using. And I show them that even the most expensive resources that we are using right now are still not measuring up to the salaries we are paying the people working on the system. So in other words, if you can find a way to reduce headcount, you're usually going to reduce the overall cost more than if you just use a lower tier of a disk somewhere, depending on the situation, right? But it's still a good metric, because now you're putting a money value on things. So errors, latency, that's a good one. Cost of the resources and like maintenance and things like that. These are good things. And then the best one, which usually has the most impact, I argue, but it requires a little more work to do that, and that is to go and get customer feedback. And that basically means that you go and talk. Like you can send a poll if you want to, or you can do like a form type of thing, like send out like what are the main issues with the systems and stuff like that, and just get some real feedback. Like what you're looking for is 1-star reviewers. Those are great for this situation, where people who like basically despise your system. These are really good people. I find that 1 or 2 approaches usually work. Like sending a form, like a poll or something like that, is one thing. Like my personal favorite is to use text-based, because people writing things is better than just a 1-star review. You want the comments, and you want them to be anonymous so that they can really give it to you the way they want it to, like how Yelp, like weaponized Yelp reviewers work, right? That's what you're looking for. And another one is, if you are like me, like I try to create a nice, good relationship with everybody. And like, for example, I've been a product manager, for example, for a really shitty system. Everybody hated working with it, but they didn't hate me. They really liked me. And that's something that's really good to learn. How do you like separate you as the individual, so the hatred for the system that you are responsible for, so forth, does not come on to you? Be a really nice person and like really hear people out and like make them feel like you're really listening to them and stuff like that. Then they will separate, and you agree. Like I'm super transparent when I work on a shitty system. I tell them, yeah, this is a shit system. We're going to try to fix it. Unfortunately, we have these restrictions, etc., etc. So you sort of get them to see a little bit of your world, so that they realize that, yeah, this is a shitty system. We want to fix it, but don't hate me because of the shitty system, because I didn't write the code in this situation. I literally just I took over. That's what I did. And so customer feedback can be really powerful if you actually go and meet the people, so you can really get to know them, and you can sort of present them to your customers and so forth and so forth. Because once you present these things, these are, in my experience, usually the most impactful things that makes people admit that there is an issue. You're usually not going to get get far with, oh, there's legacy code, or the code is bad, or we don't have enough tests, or stuff like that. These things, people will hear you, and if they really care about it, they will do something about it. But these things are more digestible for people who are in management and stuff like that. And it's what I usually say to you guys when it comes to business mindset. It's the same thing with your CV and stuff like that. You have to know your audience a little bit, because just because you care about all those God classes or all the spiderwebs of dependencies or all your like ad hoc environments or whatever, that doesn't affect your manager, because you are doing all the work. All they hear is you complaining about it, but it's hard for them to sort of relate to your situation, because they're not dealing with the mess. It's the same, like if you want to see this in full-blown action in the most horrendous ways you can imagine, try working in like the technical support or anything that has to do with customer satisfaction or support or anything like that in any organization. Is that least favored department in my experience in every single company. The poor people who have to make sure that all the unhappy customers are dealt with in a nice way. They could have truly horrendous work situations, and their manager is not going to give a shit about it, because like they are not the ones who has to be chewed out by every other person who comes in and is unhappy about something with the products. So what I want you to take away from this is that the usual way I try to communicate that I have a lot of issues with the system and so forth is, number one, trend of bugs. Show that you actually have a lot of bugs and that it's usually like it's increasing or things like that. That's a very good metric. Second thing is performance. How well is the system performing, and the cost of the system and like the delivery speed and things like that. Yeah, try to get some base numbers about that showcases where you are in comparison to the rest of like systems and stuff like that. And that also keeps you a little bit honest. If you know, I always tell people, if you come to me, like I'm a big advocate for unit testing and things like that, right? But if my teams come to me and I have had situations like that where I've said like unit testing, test coverage, do it. And they say, well, yeah, okay, cool, but we don't have any bugs. And I go, okay, cool. Then I have nothing to add. Whatever I might have thoughts about their processes and how they do things and stuff like that. But if they, as I said, if there are no bugs, then they don't need the tests. If they have bugs, please write the test or write code better, like whatever works for you, as long as you're getting the end results. And the same thing goes for you. So if you feel like you have a lot of shitty issues and stuff like that, you have to find a way to objectively prove it to them, because that is the best thing you can do. The second best thing, which is, if you have to go for one thing and one thing only, customer feedback is usually the best one. Because even if you can definitively prove things, and that's the thing that this is my bias talking, usually people are more prone to listen to you if there's like a group that has pain related to your system. If a lot of people are complaining about it, you have usually two types. One, people, like some people are swayed by numbers and like hard data and being data driven and stuff like that, but on average you're better off having customers and sort of retelling like how shitty the system is, because it's an emotional response, and a lot of people respond more to negative emotion than just a number on somewhere, right? And finally, I'll tell you this. When you have presented this, and this is my experience, I hope that it goes different for you. When you provide this, you will most likely see what I usually say, and that is that once you get to this state, because you don't get to this state if you don't have the wrong people, the right people do not get to these situations usually, you will find that they might agree, and they will say, yes, you are right, we should do something about this some other time, or like they will agree with you or not agree with you, and then they will just let the system, like let the whole thing collapse, because it's easier to, just as ignoring an error, ignoring that pile of laundry, so as long as they don't have to care, they won't care. And then you have to ask yourself that question, because usually what I find is that the only way I can make headway is if they let me do all the work, and then I can do all the work. And I learned the hard way that I used to do it just for me, because I wanted to to do nice things and stuff like that, and stuff like that, like I still do. But I also have a requirement, and that is that they're going to damn well reward me for doing the thing that they are too lazy to do or unwilling to do. If that is not the case, I will do the thing I usually do. Either I ignore it and I say, okay, they don't agree with me, they feel like this is good enough, okay, I don't agree, but I'm still going to work here because of reasons. Or I say, all right, guys, you sit in this junk pile here, and I will try to find a company that ideally pays me more and cares more, or at the very least rewards me for caring more. Have a great day.